The 4th year after Arthur's passing, I visited his resting place, hoping to speak with him, only to find it gone. Panic seized me. I rushed home, urging my son to call the authorities. He sighed, "Mom, Dad's grave was never there. He's with Aunt Sarah." He said he was forced into a loveless marriage and wished only to be buried with the woman he truly loved. Sarah, of course, was Arthur's first love, a longing he'd carried for 3 decades. My eyes fluttered open, and I was back on the day Arthur abandoned me after my miscarriage to be with Sarah. This time, I didn't beg. Instead, I calmly booked a ticket to leave. I remained in the hospital for 3 days, departing only when the pain in my abdomen became bearable. Arthur never once came to see me during that time. I managed everything alone, getting medication, injections, paying the bills. He was too occupied consoling Sarah, who saw herself as a victim of a forced marriage, wiping away her tears. He had no time for me. Upon returning home, I was packing my bags when Arthur entered. He cast a displeased glance around the house. "You've been gone for 3 days, and you couldn't even bother to tidy up? It's a mess." In truth, it was just some unfolded bedding and a few scattered clothes, but this was typical of his attitude. Any minor imperfection would sour his mood. I barely looked at him, continuing my packing. "I just got out of the hospital," I stated flatly. Arthur paused, pursed his lips as he looked at me, then, surprisingly, began helping me organize the wardrobe. His voice softened a fraction. "How's your recovery coming along?" I scoffed. I never expected him to ask that. 3 days ago, when he left me bleeding and rushed to Sarah's side, he hadn't spared a single backward glance. "Not bad," I replied, still not looking up, stuffing all my clothes into the bag. Arthur noticed my actions and casually inquired, "Why are you sorting our clothes?" "To wash them." I clutched the bag, offering no reaction. Clearly, he didn't care about my intentions. He merely nodded casually and said nothing further. After placing the bag in the kitchen, I returned to the room. Arthur held a delicately wrapped package, waving at me with a gentle smile. "Come here. I bought this especially for you when I went to the city." I remained still. He showed no impatience, instead walking towards me with a bright smile. He tore open the bag, revealing a veil, and pinned it to my head. Then he led me to the mirror, nodding with a smile. "When I saw the bride wearing this veil at the wedding, my first thought was that it would look especially beautiful on you. So I bought it for you." Staring at my reflection in the mirror, wearing the veil, a pang of bitterness welled up inside. In my previous life, I had longed for Arthur to buy me a veil and suggest renewing our vows, but it never happened. This time, simply because I didn't throw a tantrum, he fulfilled my wish. In the past, I would have been deeply moved, but now my heart was as calm as still water. I took off the veil. "I don't like this," I said, expressionlessly. Arthur hadn't anticipated this attitude. His face was filled with disbelief, his brows furrowed in anger as he stared at me. It was as if he was thinking, "You really don't know what's good for you." He said in a harsh tone, "Do whatever you want. I have something to tell you. The factory is going to nominate you as an outstanding worker, right? Sarah is right behind you. You should go to the factory and tell them you don't want the spot and let Sarah have it." I looked at him with dull eyes. No wonder he had been flattering me earlier, he was just waiting for this moment. "I earned the spot myself," I stated plainly, making my stance known. I wouldn't give it up. He looked at me impatiently. "Sarah has married into the city now. Only outstanding workers qualify to work in the city. As a woman, can't you understand her difficulties?" Ice cold. Sarah was already married, yet he still went to such lengths to make plans for her. No wonder he had been hung up on her for over 30 years. Thinking back to my previous life, the advanced worker qualification I had secured was suddenly revoked and given to Sarah instead. Judging by his attitude now, he probably schemed to ruin my chances just for Sarah. "I won't let it go," I said calmly, averting my eyes. "I earned this qualification on my own." Arthur was infuriated by my calm and indifferent demeanor, clenching his fists and grinding his teeth. "Lila," he spat, "I really don't understand how I ended up marrying such a cold and heartless woman like you. No compassion at all." He slammed the door hard as he left, the already battered wooden door creaking loudly under the impact. Arthur returned to town and didn't come home all night. I only found out about it from the ticket seller. It was obvious who he went to see. In the previous life, he wouldn't have gone into town right after an argument. At most, he'd spend the night dealing with things in the school office, then the next morning, I'd beg him quietly at the school gate to come home. Or maybe I simply didn't know when he went into town. But this time, I would never crush my own dignity to please him again. I bought a train ticket at the station for Shenzhen 5 days later. I wasn't in a hurry to go home. Instead, I took a walk around the city. This was my second time entering the city. The last time was when Arthur brought me here. Walking on the street, I couldn't help but recall the early days of our relationship. Arthur and I met through a matchmaking arrangement. He was straightforward and not very good at sweet-talking girls. After only a few meetings, he asked me, "Do you want to take a walk in the city?" As we walked through the city, he introduced me to all sorts of curious things. He bought me cotton candy, candied hawthorns, and many hair clips. That was the first time I tasted something so sweet it made my teeth ache. As we walked, he took my hand, and I could hear his heartbeat nervously. He said, "Lila, I don't know how to treat a girl right. I've heard that if you like her, you have to keep buying her things." Back then, I didn't even understand what confessing feelings meant. I just muddled through and ended up with him. If I had known at the time that Arthur often came to the city chasing after Sarah, maybe I wouldn't have looked forward to coming to the city so much. Afterward, I stayed by Arthur's side, enduring half my life. Only after Sarah passed away early from illness did his attitude toward me change. I thought my barren tree had finally blossomed, that love had finally borne fruit, but I never expected it was all just my foolish delusion. In Arthur's eyes, I was merely someone he married out of helplessness, without love. His heart would forever be open to only one person, Sarah. I was walking along the road when a familiar figure ahead made me stop in my tracks. Arthur was riding a bike with Sarah, who smiled sweetly as she reached out to hold his back. They looked so happy. Until the moment he saw me, and the smile on his face instantly froze. It was Sarah who got off the bike first and greeted me. She looked me up and down mockingly, laughing as she said, "Lila, are you here to find Arthur? He just told me you'd definitely come begging him to come home." Her words dripped with sarcasm and scorn. Arthur pushed the bike over, a flash of displeasure in his eyes. "Who told you to come? Don't think I'm the same as before, that you can just beg me a couple of times and I'll go home with you." Seeing his smug expression, I kept my face calm. "Just passing by." Arthur frowned, clearly not believing my words. His tone softened a bit as he came over to me. "All right, I don't want to argue with you. Let's go back." "No need." I put some distance between us and walked to the side. Arthur grabbed my wrist tightly, his expression displeased. Caught off guard by his sudden pull, I accidentally bumped my stomach against a bicycle parked by the roadside. A sharp pain spread through my body instantly, and I curled up, crouching down. Panic flashed across Arthur's face. He quickly knelt down and anxiously asked, "What's wrong? Did you hit your stomach? Come on, I'll take you to the hospital." I frowned, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead from the pain, and weakly nodded at him. He helped me up, placed me on the bicycle, and barely rode a few steps. Suddenly Sarah let out a sharp scream. Arthur immediately stopped the bike and anxiously asked her, "What's wrong?" Sarah slumped to the ground, pointing to her ankle. "I think I twisted my ankle." Arthur put down the bike and went over to her. I knew that once he went to her, he wouldn't take me to the hospital anymore. Sure enough, Arthur hesitated only briefly before carefully helping me down. "Apologies, Sarah's injury is more serious. Wait here. I'll take her first and then come back for you. Hang in there a little longer." He hurriedly took Sarah away, never once looking back at me. I wasn't foolish enough to keep waiting for him. I forced myself to get up and went to the pharmacy to buy some painkillers. After returning home, I didn't rush to leave immediately. The train ticket was booked for the day before the factory announced the results for the advanced workers. Even though I knew this factory wouldn't last more than a few years before layoffs and collapse, I didn't want the spot that rightfully belonged to me to be handed over to Sarah so easily. After all, in the previous life, Sarah had mocked me repeatedly for holding that spot, and she had taken many things I liked away from me. I went to the factory and made it clear that the spot had to be mine. It was what I deserved. On the day the results were to be announced, Section Chief Martin sent for me to come to the factory. Arthur and Sarah were there too. He hasn't come back since the last time he went into town. I suppose he's been by Sarah's side day and night, taking care of her attentively. His gaze fell on me as if 1,000 years of frost were pressing down on me, weighing heavily, as he scolded, "Didn't I tell you to give up the competition?" I said lightly, "I never agreed to that." Sarah's eyes were red from crying, her face scrunched up as she tugged at Arthur. "Arthur, I believe you will give me a fair chance." The coldness in Arthur's eyes vanished in an instant, replaced by a face full of concern. He handed her a handkerchief to wipe the corner of her eye, his voice so gentle it was almost unbelievable. "Yes, I will help you." Section Chief Martin awkwardly cleared his throat twice and said to me, "Lila, Arthur said you want to give up the advanced worker selection. Is that really what you intend?" He was sharp, just one glance told him what had happened. His words were clearly siding with me. I shook my head. "I have no intention of giving up my qualification." Section Chief Martin nodded, looking helpless as he said to Arthur, "See? Lila herself hasn't said she's willing to give up the selection. Whatever others say doesn't count." Sarah cried even harder, snuggling closer into Arthur's arms, sobbing, "Arthur, you promised you would help me." Arthur wrapped her in his arms with one hand, his expression full of pain and love, which truly made my eyes sting. From beginning to end, I always thought he was a refined and reserved man. He never showed any affection towards me in front of others. Every gesture like hugging or holding hands was something he resisted and rejected. Once, when I went to pick him up from work, I accidentally brushed his pinky finger with mine. He immediately darkened his face and scolded me harshly in front of the neighbors. He said I was tarnishing his image as a respectable teacher, being thoughtless and inconsiderate. In the past, I thought that was just how he was, forcing myself to swallow the grievances he blamed me for, convincing myself to understand his temperament. Finally, when I saw how he loved someone with his whole heart, I fully understood that it was all simply because he didn't love me. Arthur's voice pulled me out of my memories. He tightened his hold on the person in his arms, made up his mind, and said firmly, I remember there's a rule in the factory that one of the conditions for being an advanced worker is that you must have a spouse. Section Chief Martin was stunned but nodded. Yes, there is such a rule. Then Sarah turned her face toward me, casting a provocative glance. My fingertips dug deeply into my palm, my tongue dry and bitter. I knew exactly what he was going to say next. It turned out that in the previous life, he had openly revealed my scars and secrets to everyone, all for Sarah, without any hesitation. He spoke up in front of everyone in the office. Lila and I never got a marriage certificate. She was previously married off as a child bride by her parents to an old man, and her household registration is still held over there. Enough, I roared hoarsely, cutting him off. Holding back tears, I looked at him with lifeless eyes and let out a bitter laugh. He had clearly promised never to reveal this secret to anyone. It was the darkest, most heartbreaking secret of my life, yet he had broken his promise to me for Sarah. A sharp pain in my chest made it almost impossible to breathe. This was what utter disappointment felt like. I calmed myself and said to Director Evans, what he said is true. I have nothing to do with him. I don't want the advanced worker title anymore. Facing Arthur again, I said numbly, give that qualification to your beloved Sarah. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Everyone in the office was stunned, trying to process the news, while Section Chief Martin cast a concerned glance but remained silent. Finally, Sarah spoke with tearful eyes and a smile. Section Chief Martin, does that mean the Outstanding Worker Award should go to me? Arthur kept his lips pressed tightly, saying nothing as he stared at me, his eyes filled with anxiety and regret. I didn't meet his gaze. Now that his words were out, whether he felt guilty or not no longer mattered to me. I said to Section Chief Martin, Chief, if there's nothing else, I'll be going now. By the time Section Chief Martin reacted, I had already stepped out of the office door. Suddenly he shouted, no. This time the title of advanced worker belongs to you and no one else. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at Section Chief Martin, who was already teary-eyed. Lila, he began, none of us knew the kind of life you lived before. Now that we do, we won't look down on you. Whether or not you have a partner, your performance in the factory is beyond question. Everyone knew how a child bride raised like me would be treated: coldness, neglect, abuse. Every terrible word applied to me. I was born into a transaction of money. I can never forget the suffocating despair I felt when I was sent to live with a man 30 years my senior who was half paralyzed. It took me a whole year, but I finally escaped from there. I ran to a place where no one knew my past, thinking I could have a fresh start. I told Arthur the secret because he was the only one who had been kind to me. But I never expected that in a past life he had already made public the secret I thought I had hidden so well. No need, Director Evans. If she wants it, just give it to her. Also, my resignation hasn't been approved yet, so please try to speed up the process. I felt no attachment and wanted to leave as soon as I finished speaking. Arthur followed me out, his expression hesitant. After a long pause, he said, Lila, I'm sorry. I only revealed this because I was desperate. Seeing that I didn't fight back or argue, he truly showed some guilt. I sneered, finding him ridiculous, and looked at him coldly. No need to apologize. After all, she is the one you love most. We never really had anything between us anyway, so this is what I deserve. Arthur clenched his jaw tightly and said softly, don't say that. I only see her as a very good friend. How could we have no relationship? We're husband and wife, everyone knows that. Just 10 minutes ago, he was distancing himself from me for Sarah's sake, and now he says this to salvage his pitiful guilt. I replied coldly, you don't need to say these unnecessary things. Then I said goodbye to Director Evans. I'm leaving now, Director Evans. Arthur took a few steps forward. Where are you going? None of your business. I turned away from him coldly, without looking back. Arthur stood there stunned for a moment, then after a long pause, shouted loudly at my retreating figure, then come back early. I'll be waiting for you at home. I hurried into the city and squeezed onto the train to Shenzhen. Before coming, I had already checked my passbook and saw 15,000 yuan. This was the savings I had accumulated over nearly 10 years. When I arrived in Shenzhen, I rented a very small room to live in. According to memories from my past life, the textile factories would lay off workers and collapse within 5 years. What was rapidly developing, however, were the electrical factories, those making color TVs and refrigerators. Shenzhen was the place with the largest pool of talent and closest to raw materials. I didn't have enough capital, so I used the money I had to open a breakfast stall in Shenzhen. Although it was tiring every day, seeing the money grow little by little made me content. Half a month later, someone from my old village somehow found my current address and sent me a letter. The signature showed it was from Chloe, the only person in the village who supported my decision to leave. She and I were in similar situations, both with husbands who didn't love us, anxiously waiting every day for a man to come home. In the letter, she said she admired my courage to leave, asked what I had been up to lately, and wished me all the best for the future. I saw that she mentioned in her letter that the quota for advanced workers still belonged to me. Section Chief Martin not only refused to give this qualification to Sarah but also accused her of cheating and bribing the judges, resulting in a 5-year ban from the selection. She also said that ever since I left, Arthur had become particularly despondent. Every day after work, he would just stand at the doorstep. When people asked him why he didn't go inside, he said he was waiting for me to come back. I wrote back to her, telling her that if things weren't going well, she could come to me anytime. I started waking up early and working late, pushing a tricycle to sell breakfast. Although these days were tiring, compared to being with Arthur, they could almost be called happiness. At least I no longer had to worry or feel sad about whether Arthur would abandon me. Less than a week later, Chloe appeared at the door of the house I was renting, carrying a bag of luggage. I had just finished pushing the cart back and smiled at her. "Have you thought it through?" Chloe smiled and helped me push the cart into the yard, softly responding. After that, she rented the house next door to mine, and the two of us selling breakfast together earned twice as much as before. A month later, the money we saved together reached 40,000 yuan, so we immediately went to the market to inquire about raw materials for electrical appliances. Good things are hard to come by. After several days of running around, we still hadn't found suitable materials. Chloe told me, "Today I asked around the market and found a workshop that produces electrical appliances. The owner is from out of town and is reportedly leaving, so he's selling the workshop. We'll go take another look tomorrow. If it suits us, we can take over the workshop." The next day we found the owner and had him show us the workshop. The location was well chosen, the workshop wasn't too big, and it was within our means. "Mr. David, what price are you offering for this workshop?" After the visit, I was fairly satisfied and asked about the price. Mr. David glanced between Chloe and me for a moment, then asked an unrelated question. "Do you have skilled workers in electrical appliance manufacturing? Are you familiar with this industry?" This question really caught us off guard. Chloe and I had no knowledge of this at all, we had just dived right in. Seeing Chloe and me exchange a glance, Mr. David understood immediately. After some thought, he looked at the workshop and said, "This is the fruit of half my life's labor. If it weren't for some matters back home, I absolutely wouldn't be selling it." An idea sparked in my mind, and tentatively I asked him, "Mr. David, how about this? We don't buy the workshop outright. Instead, consider it an investment. You remain the owner, responsible for the technical side. The two of us become shareholders, handling sales going forward." Mr. David's eyes were cloudy as he pondered for a long time before finally agreeing. Chloe and I were overjoyed, and to celebrate, we even went out to a restaurant. The happiness lasted until just before we got home, where we saw Arthur and Chloe's husband standing at the doorstep. "Lila." Arthur looked at me for a long time, his eyes slightly red, hesitating to speak, and finally just hoarsely called my name. I glanced at him coldly, all the joy from before completely gone. "What are you doing here?" I asked with a frosty expression. Arthur was a bit at a loss, facing my cold attitude. After a moment of silence, he timidly said, "I came to find you. If I remember correctly, we no longer have any relationship between us." I didn't even bother to give him a glance. I really couldn't understand how he suddenly changed from being so indifferent to this, and he even traveled all this way to find me. Arthur took something wrapped in an envelope out of his bag and shoved it into my hand. "This is the medal awarded for being an outstanding worker and some money. Section Chief Martin asked me to give it to you." I felt the round medal in my hand, a bit of bitterness welling up inside. In my past life, I cried for a long time after losing this award. Arthur had bought me a cheap medal at the time. I was overjoyed, thinking he cared about my feelings enough to specially buy it for me. I never expected that it was just because he exploited my weakness to disqualify me from the selection and then felt overwhelmed with guilt upon seeing me cry. I composed myself, coldly glanced at him, and said, "If there's nothing else, I'll be going home now." My home was just a few steps away when Arthur grabbed my wrist, and I couldn't move an inch. I lowered my eyes to look at his hand, feeling a bit ironic, and reminded him, "This is a public place. Aren't you afraid of tarnishing your image as a teacher by pulling and tugging at me like this?" Arthur's figure stiffened noticeably, but he still didn't let go of my hand. After a long moment, he said in a muffled voice, "There's something else. I'll take you home." When he said that, I was utterly incredulous on the spot. I looked up at him, and after a long moment, I sneered coldly, "What? You want to take me back so Sarah can vent her frustration about not getting the Advanced Worker Award?" This was his usual trick, whether in the past life or this one, always offering a sweet gesture then slapping me awake, making me realize that every sudden kindness from him had an ulterior motive, and that motive was definitely for Sarah. Arthur grabbed my hand and pulled me back. Unprepared, I collided into his embrace. This was our first hug, and his hands gripped tightly around my waist. His voice trembled. I know I was wrong about what happened last time. I've been reflecting on my mistakes these days. I didn't care enough for you before, but I will change from now on. Will you come home with me? For him to speak to me like this was already a sign of humility, but my heart was as still as water, without a trace of emotion, and I pushed him away forcefully. Arthur's face showed confusion, hesitation, and bewilderment, mixed with a hint of irritation. I've already come to you like this, so stop throwing a tantrum. What exactly do you want me to do? Only then did I realize he hadn't changed at all. His earlier show of goodwill was just a facade. In front of me, he was always that self-assured, biased, and fearless one, forever occupying the dominant position. So when I didn't respond to his attempts at appeasement, he teetered on the edge of impatience and anger. I met his anger with calm indifference. Arthur, I asked composedly, you're the one who came looking for me. Now you think you've been humble enough, don't you find that ridiculous? Arthur's expression darkened, and he looked at me heavily. After a moment, he was the first to soften his tone. All right, it was my fault just now. I spoke too. I've just been too worried about you these past few days. You haven't come home for a whole month. If Chloe hadn't left her husband and tracked down your location, I wouldn't have known you'd gone so far away. As he spoke, he kept staring at me with a probing look, as if trying to uncover the emotions beneath my calm exterior. What was he hoping to see? I guess surprise, shock, excitement, thinking that if he said a few more kind words, I'd follow him back. But that would never happen. I turned my face away and saw that Chloe was just as impatiently dealing with him as I was. How many times do I have to say it? We have nothing to do with each other anymore. I had no patience left to keep dealing with Arthur, so I shook him off, went inside, and locked the door. Arthur stood outside, knocking incessantly, his voice humble as he called out, Lila, it was my fault just now. Can we talk? Before long, my neighbor next door came out yelling, what are you doing knocking all the time? She doesn't want to see you. You're disturbing my kids' homework. After that, the knocking stopped. Arthur kept apologizing and eventually left. I eagerly cooked 3 dishes and brought them to Chloe's place, hoping for a long talk through the night. To my surprise, she had also prepared 3 dishes. We exchanged a smile, and Chloe said, I never thought he'd stoop so low as to beg me like this. There wasn't enough room on 6 tables for all the dishes, and I laughed joyfully. Spanning a lifetime, it felt like this was truly the beginning of my days. We opened 2 bottles of soda and toasted. I laughed freely. Mr. David has agreed too. I feel like days like these are a true rebirth. Breaking free from Arthur, stepping out of that self-doubting relationship, and about to have a career. Each of these is a blessing. The next day, after Chloe and I finished our stall, we arranged to meet Mr. David. He explained how to manage the workshop workers and how to inspect finished products. He also suggested that Chloe and I enroll in a mechanical manufacturing class, not needing to know much, just enough to understand the processes and standards of electrical appliance production. We could tell that Mr. David had a deep affection for this workshop. The day before he left, he even told us to make sure to come by and check on it every day. I smiled and waved at him. Don't worry, now we're shareholders too. Chloe and I took his advice and signed up for classes. We started a breakfast stall to earn money, hoping that one day we could expand the workshop into a factory. Another half-month passed, and the workshop produced a batch of finished colored TVs. Mr. David also returned from his hometown. When we discussed the possibility of selling, he said, there's a tricky problem right now. The cost of raw materials has risen quite a bit compared to before, but the price for color TVs in Shenzhen is only 260 yuan. If we raise the price, they won't sell. Chloe bumped me twice and said, do you remember how much color TVs sold for in our village? I think it was over 470. I nodded. The color TVs in our area are all shipped from Shenzhen, so the price definitely goes up. At that moment, a bright idea struck me, and I slammed the table. We can transport the color TVs down south to sell. We quickly worked out the shipping and rental costs and calculated that each TV could sell for over 100 yuan more than in Shenzhen. Chloe and I paused our breakfast stall for a week, rented a car, and drove down south with the driver, selling a whole truckload of color TVs. After returning to Shenzhen, we counted the earnings and made over 10,000 in one trip. When we told Mr. David this news, we were all overjoyed. I then shared with him the plan for the future, to use this money to buy a truck, hire 2 more drivers, and continue down the path of transportation. Mr. David thought it was feasible and withdrew 30,000 from the 40,000 we had previously invested, leaving it to the 2 of us to manage. This plan was implemented for 3 months, not only earning us enough money to expand the workshop but also making a name for ourselves in the southern market. We also opened up a transportation route, so as long as the southern market bought from us, it would be 20 yuan cheaper than elsewhere. Previously, Section Chief Martin in the village heard that I was selling color TVs and quickly wrote to ask if I had any connections. I told him about the plan to expand the workshop into a factory and said that if he was interested, he could invest. Section Chief Martin, together with several other secretaries from the factory, discussed and deliberated, and the 5 of them jointly invested 50,000 yuan in us. Mr. David found a well-located site and vigorously moved the workshop there. In just 2 months, Chloe and I transformed into shareholders of the electrical appliance factory. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Mr. David smiled happily and said with emotion, "Lila, do you have some kind of foresight? How is it that everything goes so smoothly? In less than half a year, we've already established an electrical appliance factory." Chloe also smiled and said, "When I came out looking for you, I never thought I would make money. I just wanted to have something of my own to do, and I didn't expect to achieve something like this." I smiled and complimented them both. It's all thanks to everyone's joint effort. After the ribbon-cutting ceremony, we went to a restaurant. The place was a bit stuffy, so I stepped outside to get some fresh air. Outside the restaurant, I saw Arthur. Actually, it wasn't surprising to see him. Ever since he came to Shenzhen to find me 4 months ago, only to be met with my cold shoulder, and then disappear for a few days, he kept showing up in Shenzhen frequently, appearing before me again and again, wanting to say something but never daring to. For 4 months straight, it had been like that. But I always turned a blind eye and ignored him, only occasionally noticing a boxed meal hanging at the doorstep or new clothes made from fabric in plastic bags. So I simply moved out boldly, buying a 50-square-meter apartment to live on my own. Since then, this was the first time in nearly a month that I had seen him. When Section Chief Martin wrote to me, he spoke very metaphorically, as if saying he had taken a leave without pay, claiming he was going to find someone, but that he would return. He also said that Sarah had been fired from the factory and that Arthur had personally reported her. He said she had committed adultery during her marriage, and the factory could not accept such a morally flawed employee. Now Sarah was busy begging her husband in the city not to divorce her. Arthur seemed to be deliberately waiting outside for me. When he saw me come out, he walked toward me step by step and said softly, "I have something I want to say to you." I looked at him coldly. "There's nothing to say between us." Just as I was about to leave, he grabbed my arm, but only for a moment before letting go immediately. His voice was hoarse, and he kept his head down as if he didn't dare to meet my eyes. With a hint of a sob, he said, "After I say this, I'll give up." I was silent for a long time, standing in the wind, watching him. Arthur, dressed in thin, worn-out clothes, looked desolate and defeated, as if a single word could easily bring him down. That face was still the same, the handsome face I had loved in a past life, only that he used to always be proud and disdainful in front of me. Now, with his brows lowered in a humble posture, it was the first time I had seen him like this. "Speak." 5 minutes. I glanced at my watch and said coldly and ruthlessly. Arthur said impatiently, I've been in Shenzhen all this time, by your side." I responded lightly. I saw that he kept looking at me, yet still found no emotion on my face. He said dejectedly, "Lila, I was really unwilling at first. I thought we'd been together for so many years, how could we break up because of Sarah? I have regretted my impulsiveness countless times. I hate myself for not standing firm, always thinking that Sarah once saved my father's life and I had to repay her, so I used your secret to hurt you." My eyes dimmed, and I remained silent. 6 months had passed, and he still didn't understand why I chose to leave him. He just felt that if he hadn't revealed my secret back then, maybe I wouldn't have left without a trace. The wind tousled his hair. It had grown long, and his beard was untrimmed, no longer resembling the so-called exemplary teacher he once was. His face was clearly right before my eyes. In my past life, I had seen his features countless times, yet now my vision was so blurred, leaving only a vague outline. Perhaps it was love that had etched his image deeply into my mind, and after love faded, the details dissolved, leaving just a hazy silhouette. He choked back tears. "Still, these days, I've seen it all. Without me by your side, you'd live a better life." I wrapped my coat tighter, watching his tears with the same cold detachment he had shown me in our past life. Then, after a moment of silence, I said, "Arthur, what made me resolute enough to leave you wasn't just one thing." He lifted his reddened eyes to look at me, filled with sorrow and confusion, and answered, "I know, it's because I cared too little for you." I rejected his answer. "Because I can see our future. I can see that in the next 20 years, you will still continue to like Sarah. This is just an interlude, a temporary denial of your feelings for her." He shook his head and firmly contradicted me. "No, I have already seen my own heart clearly. I have only ever felt gratitude towards her. Lila, the one I've always loved is you. I'm used to having you by my side, nagging me. Without you, the house feels so quiet and uncomfortable. This lifetime brought many things that caught me off guard, even to the point of astonishment. Arthur confessing to me, saying he loved me, was one of them." I interrupted him calmly. "Then you'll have to get used to it, because I will never be by your side in the future." He suddenly closed his lips, his brows furrowing not in anger but in sorrow. He lowered his eyes, wanting to say something but not daring to. Whether it was the wind or overwhelming grief, his shoulders trembled uncontrollably. Actually, it's good that you brought that up. At least now, nothing can ever hurt me again. I won't be hurt by anyone anymore. Lila. Arthur looked at me deeply, opening his mouth several times before finally forming one "I'm sorry." I ignored the apology, instead looking at my watch and saying impatiently, "Time's up. I have to go in." Arthur didn't pursue me further. He just stood there, dazed. Even after we finished eating and came out, he was still there. When Chloe saw him, she whispered, "How did he manage to follow us here?" I replied casually, "Who knows? Maybe he's just pathetic." Chloe nodded and smiled at me, saying, "You know my ex-husband was stubbornly refusing to divorce before, right? He finally agreed a while ago, and now I have no more worries at all." "That's great. Let's continue celebrating by eating out tomorrow." As I smiled and glanced sideways at her, I happened to catch sight of Arthur frozen in place. He had been watching me all along, his gaze following me, so the moment I noticed him, our eyes met immediately. Arthur forced a stiff, awkward smile, just like the first time we met in a past life. But back then, I thought he was really cute. Now, I only felt annoyance, so I turned my gaze forward and kept walking. The three of us established our own company and created our own appliance brand. Initially, sales in the southern market were excellent, attracting many businesses to collaborate with us. With the first pot of gold we earned, I told Chloe about the upcoming rise in property prices a few years later. Chloe didn't even ask me where I had heard the news from. She threw all her savings into commercial housing. She also invested in the construction industry with me and started a real estate business. The bonuses at the appliance factory were distributed quarterly. Section Chief Martin and the others had already received theirs, so I called him, but Section Chief Martin said, "I never intended to take that money back. You keep it." I found it strange that he wouldn't accept it and insisted on sending the money over. After hesitating for a long time, Section Chief Martin finally told me the truth. "Lila, actually, this 50,000 yuan was given to you by Arthur. He said if he gave it to you himself, you definitely wouldn't accept it, so he asked me to give it to you under the pretense of investing in you. He said that in everyone's eyes, my business was always just a sole proprietorship, and it wouldn't be long before I lost money." I thought it over and still sent the money to Director Evans. I told him that the factory couldn't keep up like before, so this money should be saved to subsidize the laid-off workers in the future. The people at the factory weren't bad to me before, so this money was also a way to repay the kindness they once showed me. Chloe and her ex-husband finally got their divorce certificate and took me to a photo studio to take a picture. Comparing it to when we first came out a year ago, we had both changed, becoming braver and more resilient. Chloe stroked the photo, smiling until her eyes blurred with tears. With tears welling up, she said to me, "Lila, I never thought I could live like this one day." I also wept with joy. The past is behind us now. From now on, life will be good. I firmly believe that. The spouse I shared can't be reclaimed. My single closest friend convinced me to let her borrow my husband for a sham marriage, claiming it would secure a larger share of relocation funds. She promised to return him once the compensation was hers, and I reluctantly agreed. But who knew my friend had been secretly involved with my husband all along? The relocation story was a fabrication. When I confronted her, I discovered she and my husband had conspired to murder me, sealing me under the stove with concrete. 6 months later, their house was indeed scheduled for demolition, and my skeletal remains were exposed for all to see. When my eyes opened again, I was back on the day my friend asked to borrow my husband. I delivered a resounding slap across his face. Smack! A sharp, loud crack echoed. Leo stared at me in disbelief, clutching his cheek. "Darling, why did you hit me? Fiona said she wants to borrow you for a few months. You seem quite pleased about that, don't you?" I retorted. "What? No, how could I be? That's not true. I just saw you smiling." Leo's face showed a flicker of embarrassment, as if his deepest thoughts had been laid bare. In my past life, I was foolish enough not to realize he was secretly thrilled, all while pretending to be reluctant to divorce me. I was blinded by his hypocritical display of deep affection, so foolish that I handed my own husband over to my best friend, so foolish that I lost my own life. I just think Fiona's idea is naive. "Darling, I love you so much, how could I ever agree to something so ridiculous? Leo, I'm warning you, don't even think about enjoying the benefits of two women." I snorted coldly and turned to look at Fiona. Her expression was quite something, too. She probably thought I'd agree because, in her eyes, the old me was an easily deceived fool. "Fiona, you heard what my husband said, right? He also thinks it's absurd that you'd use him for a fake marriage just to snag a bigger share of the demolition compensation." A flash of hatred crossed Fiona's face, but she quickly adopted a pitiful look and clutched my arm. "Mia, can't you help me out? One more person means an extra $500,000. How about I give you half once we get the money?" I shook my head firmly, continuing the act. "I want to help you, but how can I betray my own husband for a mere few tens of thousands?" Ugh, I spat inwardly. Leo wasn't worth even $100. My refusal wasn't because I was attached to that scumbag. I certainly wouldn't let those two live comfortably. I was going to make them pay. In my past life, Leo and Fiona teamed up. I will definitely get revenge for this grudge. Mia, you won't even help me with such a small matter? Do I even matter to you as your best friend? Do you even consider me your friend? How could you say something like asking me to divorce my husband and give him to you? I put on a heartbroken expression, as if deeply wounded by my closest friend, speaking with tears in my voice. I really felt my acting skills deserved an award. Wasn't that just pretending? Pretending won't work either. You're hurting me so much. You know I love Leo deeply, and just the thought of being apart from him breaks my heart. Wifey, saying those words almost made me sick to my stomach, but it moved Leo. He held me close, comforting me, and told Fiona to leave, saying there was no need to discuss this matter any further. Before leaving, Fiona glared at me with dark, cold eyes. I nestled in Leo's arms, smiling and waving goodbye to her. The next day, Fiona came to see me again, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed that her mother was ill and needed a lot of money for medical bills. To think she would curse her own mother just to deceive me, what a devoted daughter she is. You and Leo get a fake divorce. Let him marry me. I promise you, after the marriage, he'll still live with you. It's all just for show, don't worry. Since Auntie is sick and needs money, then. Fiona looked at me hopefully. I deliberately paused, picked up the cup on the table, took a sip of water, and then spoke softly. How about I buy your old family house for $250,000? Even if it's demolished, it's only worth $20,000. Fiona's old home isn't even scheduled for demolition, and that leaky old house isn't worth that much. Now that I'm offering her $250,000, she'll definitely think she's hitting the jackpot and agree. Sure enough, when Fiona heard me say I'd pay so much for her rundown old house, her eyes widened. Can you give a little more? Look, after I sell my house, where will my family live? We'll have to buy a new one, and housing prices are so high these days. Fiona still wanted to ask for a lion's share, but I pretended to be reluctant and said, this $250,000 is all my savings. We're best friends, after all. I originally planned to help you as much as I could. If you think it's too little, then $250,000. It's settled. No backing out. Fiona quickly nodded in agreement, forgetting that she had come to persuade me to divorce and hand Leo over to her. But she didn't know that her words would come true. Half a year later, the house back home was indeed demolished, and the compensation was $400,000, more than $250,000. That house will soon be mine, and I'm going to make sure she ends up with nothing. Then let's go handle the transfer paperwork later, and I'll transfer the money to you. By the way, we can also stop by the hospital to see Auntie. No need, no need. My mom has someone watching over her at the hospital. We should hurry and get the transfer done. That's the important thing. Fiona said quickly, afraid I would actually go to the hospital and find out her mother wasn't really sick, exposing her lie. Leo behaved himself for a few days, coming home on time every day after work to have dinner with me. I deliberately added a lot of nourishing herbs to our meals and bought oysters for several days in a row. I deliberately said that my period had come recently. Leo knew my periods were always irregular, so he had no choice but to obediently go to bed at night. I saw him tossing and turning, unable to sleep, knowing the moment was coming. That morning, I said I had to go on a business trip for a few days. Leo pretended to look reluctant, but when I bent down to put on my shoes, I caught his reflection in the glass cabinet. He was smiling. Smile all you want, soon you will be able to. I pulled my suitcase and walked out. Leo kissed my cheek, and after closing the door, I took out a tissue and wiped the spot where he had kissed me hard. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. While he was not at home, I secretly installed several hidden cameras in the bedroom, the bathroom, and the living room. Sure enough, he was on the phone. Just thinking about it, I knew he was definitely calling Fiona. He couldn't hold it in any longer. I hid in the convenience store near the neighborhood, waiting for the prey to appear. Soon, Fiona showed up, dressed lightly and driving her newly bought car. I called Leo's parents again, lying that the neighbor said there was a smell of gas in our house, but I was on a business trip and Leo was home sleeping. I figured they could get home in about 10 minutes at the fastest. The show was about to begin. Staring at the phone screen, it wasn't long before Fiona appeared on it. As soon as she walked in, Leo grabbed her and kissed her passionately. They didn't even make it to the room. Leo pinned Fiona down on the sofa, clothes scattered all over the floor. Seeing those two pale bodies on the screen made me almost lose my breakfast. I quickly shut off the phone, left my suitcase at the convenience store, and rushed home. When I reached the doorstep, my in-laws were already there, anxiously knocking and calling out, but too afraid to call Leo. They looked surprised to see me, who was supposed to be on a business trip, standing at the door. Why are you here? Didn't you say you were on a business trip? I couldn't stop worrying, so I told the driver to turn back halfway. I'm about to use the key to open the door. I was here to deliver the key, so how could I not show up? As soon as the door opened, my in-laws rushed in anxiously. Leo, wearing only a loose pair of shorts, looked at us in surprise. Dad, Mom, darling, what are you doing here? We were worried about you, son. Why have you been knocking for so long without opening the door? Leo's eyes flickered nervously. I was just sleeping. Wasn't there supposed to be a gas leak? I don't smell any gas. But there's a strange smell. My mother-in-law sniffed around, puzzled at first, then suddenly looked at me without a word. My father-in-law glanced at his son, understanding what was going on, frowning. He cursed, "Where is she? Dad, what are you talking about? I'm the only one home." Leo kept denying it, but my father-in-law slapped him across the face and said, "I'll deal with you later." Then he started searching the house. My mother-in-law hurried after him, urging him to speak calmly, saying maybe he misunderstood his son. The fact that Leo cheated and even brought a woman home was so obvious, yet my mother-in-law still wanted to defend her son. My father-in-law is a man of integrity. I heard he was a soldier in his youth and has a fierce temper. He would never tolerate his son having an affair, let alone bringing the woman home. You can imagine Leo would have a hard time getting out of this without some serious consequences. So, when I caught them in the act, the first thing I did was call my father-in-law over to witness it. When Leo first opened the door, he was near the balcony, his eyes darting over twice. I walked out to the balcony to look, and sure enough, there they were. I deliberately shouted in surprise, "Fiona, how could it be you?" My shouting drew the attention of my father-in-law and mother-in-law, and of course, Leo, who had been staring at me the whole time. "Oh dear, this is unbearable to watch," my mother-in-law said, glancing at Fiona, who was wearing nothing but a man's shirt, the buttons barely fastened. She quickly grabbed her husband and walked away. My father-in-law's face turned a deep purple red, so furious he was about to explode. Fiona clung tightly to the balcony railing, but after holding on for so long, she was barely hanging on, her legs trembling, her hands shaking, feeling like she could fall at any moment. When I saw Leo trying to reach out to pull Fiona to safety, I cried out and lunged at him, hitting him to cleverly stop him from going to rescue her. "Leo, have you been faithful to me? How could you be involved with my best friend?" I wept bitterly, fully embodying the image of a pitiful woman betrayed by her husband. My father-in-law and mother-in-law came over to comfort me. He was there to console me, while she was there to protect her son. "You even took advantage of my business trip to bring this into our home. Leo, you're not a man, you're a beast. Darling, it was Fiona who seduced me. I was wrong. I truly realized my mistake. Please forgive me. I promise I won't do anything to hurt you again. It was just a fling with her. You only come begging for my forgiveness after being caught red-handed? Isn't it a bit too late?" I kept cursing, while noisy voices came from downstairs. "Come take a look. Isn't this especially entertaining? Hurry and record it. Hey, beautiful, jump down. I'll catch you, then we can go straight home and lie in bed. Ha 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 ha. My home is on the 5th floor. If I were lucky, jumping down, I might still survive." The men downstairs were all jeering, several of them holding phones, filming. "Shut up, all of you. Get lost. Haven't you ever seen a woman before? You disgusting men." I had to admire Fiona's mental toughness. She was barely dressed, hanging there, yet still had the energy to yell at the onlookers. "You're the shameless one. You're not even wearing clothes and you're still afraid of being seen. Exactly. If you've got the guts, jump down and fight me. Pull her up. It'll be a real problem if something happens publicly," he told his son to pull Fiona up. Just as Leo was about to go over, a commotion came from downstairs. Fiona had fallen. Fiona fell from the 5th floor, ending up paralyzed from the chest down, and became the subject of online gossip. Our family was exposed, some sympathized with me as the wife, while others cursed Leo and Fiona, causing a huge uproar. Leo's reputation was ruined. He quit his job and stayed hidden at home every day. He got beaten up a few times by his father-in-law, who didn't hold back but avoided hitting vital spots, leaving Leo bruised and battered. After my father-in-law finished beating him, I quickly stepped forward to soothe him. Leo was surprised that I forgave him without holding a grudge and even spoke up for him in front of my father-in-law. He broke down in tears, promising to love only me from now on, even swearing an oath. "Darling, if I, Leo, ever treat you badly again or have a second thought, may I be hit by a car the moment I step outside." I touched his bruised eyes and thought, "Leo, how could a dog ever stop eating S***T? My father-in-law and mother-in-law were moved by my generosity. My father-in-law even suggested transferring the house we currently live in into my name. My mother-in-law disagreed, but under my father-in-law's stern scolding, she had no choice but to nod. He said that men become unfaithful when they have money, so it's better to have empty pockets. He also ordered my mother-in-law to take out the salary card she had been keeping from my husband and give it to me. I noticed that my mother-in-law looked very displeased, but I chose to ignore it and happily accepted the salary card and the property deed. This move of mine cleverly exploited Leo's guilt and my father-in-law's sympathy. I played it brilliantly. Just as I returned to my room, an angry voice suddenly rang out. "I'm putting it out there, Leo. You owe my sister an explanation today. You're being way too shameless, bringing someone into our home. What do you think you're doing? Take her away immediately. Otherwise, I'm calling the police." I heard the sound of an argument and went out to the living room to see what was happening. It was Fiona's brother, Mark, along with a few village friends, carrying the paralyzed Fiona into my house and placing her in the center of the living room, demanding an explanation from Leo. "Go ahead and report it. When the police come, let them judge who's at fault. You messed with my sister and left her disabled. When they arrive, will they arrest you or me?" Mark shouted loudly. He was the type of burly man with a tough build. A few village friends stepped forward, glaring fiercely at Leo, their presence intimidating like a gang. Leo shrank back in fear. When he saw me appear, it was as if he had found a savior. He hurried over and grabbed me. "Darling, you know him, right? Please help me talk to them." I inwardly despised his lack of responsibility, subtly pulling my hand back and walking over to greet Mark. "Mark." I looked down at Fiona lying there motionless. Probably the only part of her body that could move was her eyes, glaring at me angrily. "Mia, even if you come as a mediator, it's useless. You can't decide anything about this matter today." Mark waved his hand. He knew me back when Fiona and I were as close as twins. I often visited her home and had naturally met Mark several times. Fiona even once said she wanted to set me up with his brother so I could become her sister-in-law, making our families even closer. God bless, luckily not so. "Mark, how do you think we should handle this?" "Simple. That kid Leo marries my sister and pays me $20,000 as emotional damages." Leo loudly objected after hearing this, then came over and held my hand, saying he wouldn't divorce me to marry someone else. Grandma, who had been hiding in the corner, rushed over when she heard Mark's words. "I think this plan is good, but can we waive the compensation for emotional distress? We're almost one big family now." "Mom, shut up. You've ruined that girl like this, and it's already very kind of her not to sue. Marrying her is the best solution." I put on a nearly tearful look and asked, "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Mia, I know this has been hard on you, but for the sake of my son, I hope you can let them be." "Mother-in-law, you're a woman too. Can't you understand me? If the situation were reversed and it was father-in-law instead, would you be willing to give up your own husband?" "What are you saying? Your father-in-law would never do such a thing." "But your son did." "I can honestly say that since marrying into the Lee family, I haven't done anything wrong. Now Leo has cheated and wronged me, why should I be the one to back down? I love Leo very much. Why do you have to force me to give him up? Are you trying to kill me?" I spoke with genuine emotion, half true, half false. Leo was so moved by me that he firmly refused to divorce me. Mother-in-law was so angry that she slapped him. "If you don't want to marry, that's fine. There's still a compromise," Mark said with a roguish grin. "What solution?" "That kid Leo donated a kidney to my dad, so that settles it. From now on, just pay some living expenses." "That's not acceptable. He can't donate." Grandma was the first to jump up in opposition. "Have Mia donate. She can manage with one kidney, but my son can't. No one can be fine with one less kidney." I looked at Grandma as if she were an idiot. "I had surgery last year, and the doctor said no major operations for 3 years. Are you trying to kill me?" I understand that Grandma can never be a mother, but you can't be so biased. You can't protect your son forever, he has to learn to take responsibility. "Darling, it's okay, even if you lose a kidney, I'll still love you and take care of you." Leo came over and hugged me. "Wifey, but I'm scared. You know I've been afraid of blood since I was a kid." "Yeah, my son is afraid of blood. Where did this old hag come from? It's your son who cheated, and now you want your daughter-in-law to take responsibility?" Mark couldn't stand it anymore, came over and pushed Grandma. "My son's kidney might not even be suitable for your dad." The mother-in-law had been full of confidence, but as soon as Mark approached, she wilted. "Indeed, it takes a villain to outwit a villain. This is your son's medical report. Congratulations, he's a perfect match to donate a kidney to my dad." Mark waved Leo's medical report in his hand. "Originally, my sister was supposed to donate a kidney, but since you've done this to her, taking one more kidney from her wouldn't be right, so it has to be you." Leo snatched it from Mark's hand and, sure enough, it was his own medical report from last month. "Where did you get this?" "Don't ask where or how I got it. Now here's the deal, marry my sister or give up a kidney." Mark, with a cigarette dangling from his mouth, gave me a secretive glance. Leo's medical report was given to Mark by me, and it was I who taught them to bring Fiona over today. Donating a kidney between strangers is illegal. You can't. Don't worry about that, I have my connections. Leo clenched the medical report in his hand, his knuckles turning white. He looked at me again, then finally said heavily, "I'll donate." When my mother-in-law heard him say he would donate, she cried out loud and wailed, then fainted. The most effective way to deal with a shameless person? In court. Using my status as the original wife, I filed a lawsuit against Fiona, demanding the revocation of the gift and requiring her to return the transfers, red envelopes, and gifts from the scumbag, Leo. I came specifically to inform you today. Not bad for a best friend, right? I shook the screenshots on my phone, which I had coaxed Leo into sending me, all the transfer records. Only after adding it up did I realize Leo had transferred over $90,000 to Fiona, not even counting the several luxury handbags he bought her. When Fiona heard I came to ask her for the money today, she was so furious that her sharp eyes glared at me fiercely. I grabbed a pillow and pressed it hard against her face. In my mind was the fierce expression on her face the last time she tried to kill me in my previous life. In the end, reason triumphed over anger, and I pulled away the pillow she had pressed against her face. There was no need to take on the charge of murder for a worthless woman. The world was still a beautiful place, especially now that I had money and a house. Surveying this shabby rental, Fiona probably spent the more than $200,000 I gave her on cars and bags, never once thinking to share any of it with her mother or brother. Watching her face flush bright red as she struggled to catch her breath, I curled my lips into a smirk. "Ah, by the way, here's some good news for you. Your hometown is really going to be demolished, and the compensation is over $600,000. You really are my best friend, just handing me money to spend." Fiona's throat made an unpleasant sound, her expression as ugly as a demon from the underworld. The door suddenly opened, and Fiona's mother, Lillian, walked in. "What's wrong with Fiona? She's just happy because she hasn't seen me in a long time." Lillian nodded, came over and took my hand, saying Mia was getting more and more beautiful. She also said Fiona was trying to seduce my husband, but I put the past behind me to come see her. As she spoke, she sighed and said the netizens were ruthless. They found their rental house, dumped feces at the door, and shouted about breaking in. It was Mark who scared them off, finally bringing some peace. Now all the relatives and friends have stopped associating with them, saying their family has a mistress daughter who doesn't even wear clothes and lets people take photos that get spread all over the internet. The Quinn family's reputation is completely ruined. I comfortingly patted her hand. Lillian is also pitiful, having to deal with a daughter like Fiona. "Auntie, how is your health?" "Fiona said you're very ill." "I'm not sick at all." "That damn girl, how dare she curse me like that? She's truly lost her mind." Lillian was first confused, then quickly realized that her daughter was not only a mistress but also a compulsive liar. "Even took out my own savings from years of hard work to help her pay your medical bills." "How much did you give her?" "I haven't seen a single cent." $250,000. "To thank me, she transferred the old house in your village to me." "Not worth much?" "That house is about to be demolished." Lillian almost let the demolition slip out. She frowned, walked over to Fiona's bed, and slapped her several times in a row, making Fiona bleed from the mouth. "You idiot. I'll throw you out to fend for yourself soon." I took advantage of Lillian being busy with her daughter and not paying attention to me, and slipped away quietly to avoid her asking me to give back the house. Ever since Leo donated a kidney, his health has deteriorated. My mother-in-law's attitude towards me changed too. She's blamed me from the start for her son losing a kidney. Every time she sees me, she makes sarcastic remarks, her face shifting like a chameleon, but she's very good at putting on a front when Leo and my father-in-law are around. She pretends to be nice to me. Today, with my father-in-law taking Leo to the hospital for a follow-up, it was just my mother-in-law and me at home, and she revealed her true colors. "This is for my son. Do you even deserve to eat it?" Mother-in-law slapped my hand just as I was about to pick up some braised pork. I reached for the boiled shrimp, and she struck again with her chopsticks. This time I pulled back quickly, so she missed. "What do you mean by that?" "These are all for my son. He has only one kidney and poor health. He needs to be nourished." I snorted coldly and put down my chopsticks. Then I called the restaurant downstairs right in front of her and ordered food, deliberately choosing the most expensive seafood. Hearing me order lobster and bird's nest, her face turned green with anger. She pointed at me, cursing, and the insults grew harsher and harsher. I had no idea how an old woman who never leaves the house could have such a vast vocabulary for swearing. "If you don't feed me, of course I'll order takeout myself. After all, I'm spending your son's salary card money. I don't feel guilty about it." She rushed over, trying to hit me. I grabbed her hand and pushed her away. She lay on the sofa, throwing a tantrum, crying and shouting, "It's a curse. If you hadn't refused to let my son marry that Fiona, would my son have lost a kidney? And you still recklessly spend my son's money." I laughed in anger. Her son cheated, caused Fiona to become disabled, and lost a kidney himself, and she blames me, the victim? What a bizarre way of thinking. I haven't even held a grandchild yet. My son can't do heavy work now, can't overextend himself, and whether he can have children is uncertain. All because of you, you jinx. I might as well be dead. What's the point of living? My mother-in-law cried, pounding her chest with a look about her heartbreak. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a kitchen knife, and threw it in front of her. Want to die, huh? Here, end it yourself. She immediately stopped crying, startled. You, what are you doing? I'm helping you. Come on, hurry up. I'll pick out a nice grave for you later, using your son's money. I kicked the knife closer to her. She picked it up and pointed it at me. Mia, it's all your fault. You're the one without charm, unable to keep your husband from cheating. Still blaming my son. The old man even helped you and gave you the house. So what right do you have? You haven't even had a child. The mother-in-law seemed to have lost her mind, her expression wild, her voice tinged with madness. I keenly heard some noise outside, guessing it was my father-in-law and Leo coming home. A slight smile curled at the corner of my mouth as my eyes fixed steadily on my mother-in-law. What are you smiling at? I laughed and said, you're in big trouble. Ah, mother-in-law, don't kill me. I timed it perfectly. Just after I finished speaking, the door was opened. Father-in-law rushed over and snatched the kitchen knife from mother-in-law's hand. Leo came to support me, anxiously asking what had happened. Are you crazy? What are you trying to do, holding a knife to Mia? Faced with father-in-law's stern questioning, mother-in-law showed a dazed expression, mumbling repeatedly, what did I just do, as if she didn't even know what she had done. My mother-in-law just tried to kill me. It seems like she's lost her mind. Leo looked at his mother in shock, while his father stared at her for a long time. It seems the son's accident hit you hard. I saw you spit into Mia's soup earlier. I thought it was just. I felt a surge of anger. How dare that old woman make me eat her spit? Father-in-law, let's take mother-in-law to a psychiatrist today. She can hold a knife to me, who knows if tomorrow she'll do the same to you? Leo's face showed a look of fear, and he quickly nodded in agreement. After some thought, his father-in-law also agreed. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to a mental hospital. Mia, I'm going to kill you. Mom, we're doing this for your own good. The mother-in-law struggled and shouted all the way as the father-in-law escorted her to the mental hospital. I threw the ultrasound report in front of Leo. When he saw the words early pregnancy written on it, he was overjoyed and held me tightly, asking eagerly, darling, you're pregnant? I'm going to be a dad. I am pregnant, but I already had it terminated. Leo's expression instantly darkened, and he staggered back a few steps. His happiness lasted only a few seconds. I knew how much he loved children, but I would never keep a child from a scumbag. You're crazy. How dare you abort my child? Leo's forehead veins bulged, his face twisted as he shouted at me. You cheated on me and betrayed my trust. Once unfaithful, always untrustworthy. The child existed when I found out about your affair with Fiona. As soon as I knew, I had the surgery. Leo, you don't deserve to be a father. Let's get a divorce. After saying the last sentence, I left the house without looking back and had the real estate agent put the house up for rent. Behind me was the sound of Leo's desperate sobbing. Later, my former father-in-law came to see me, offering me a sum of money as compensation. I shook my head and refused. He sighed and began to talk to me about Leo. Leo was incorrigible. After I divorced him, he started an affair with the owner of the chess parlor downstairs, but someone tipped off the boss. The boss called a few people to chase and beat him. Leo fled to the driveway, where he was hit and thrown by a speeding car, dying on the spot. I kept my head down, silent. My former father-in-law sighed again and before leaving, said, take this money. He's leaving this city and won't need much. Finally, my former father-in-law said, the old woman jumped off the rooftop of the psychiatric hospital. He has no more worries now. I looked up, revealing a strange smile. It was I who had made the tip-off call to the chess and card room owner. In the end, Leo did live up to the oath he swore to himself. Oaths really shouldn't be taken lightly.